Something's creeping, it's right outside. So come on in, and don't be shy. We've got ghosts and UFOs. Brace yourself, get ready for the show. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares our tales will inspire. Oh, tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Have you heard tell of a demon next door? Or maybe a cryptid on the lake shore? There's nothing too strange for us here. So if you're ready, stamp out your fear. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares our tales will inspire. Tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Whoa, whoa.
Welcome, campers. Episode 31 begins with silence, a heavy, listening silence, the kind that feels alive. Tonight, the stories come from places that remember too much, rooms that hum with things unsaid, paths that pull you back even after you've left. These aren't just hauntings, campers. They're echoes of choices that never stopped being made. Tonight's first story comes from Reddit user fit_exchange5314, who found themselves living in a house where something unseen made its presence violently known. It began with small, almost dismissible moments, a weight on the bed, a sound in the dark. But what followed them seemed to defy all logic, turning an ordinary home into something unwelcoming and alive. Whatever lingered, there wasn't just watching, it was reacting. I was living with my mum and little sister, who was 3 at the time. I had lived there for 2 weeks when one night, while in bed in the middle of the night, I thought my French bulldog jumped on my bed as I felt the weight of something pretty heavy on my feet. I was on my phone, not paying attention, in pitch black at 3 a.m., and my dog had a habit of pacing around all the rooms in the house at night. I didn't look, as I was so sure it was her because of the sheer weight of it, and the mattress was dipping until I went to try move my foot, as I had pins and needles, and looked up from my phone and saw the dog was not there. I put the lamp on straight away, thinking I couldn't see her because it was too dark, and pulled the covers really hard and ran into the hallway shouting for my dog. She waddled in but didn't want to come in, and was being awkward, which scared me even more as she was obedient. To my actual horror, I turned to get back into bed, and there was a huge dip on the end of my mattress that I saw slowly imprint into the shape of someone's legs and buttocks, and I was so scared I held my breath. My dog was staring at the bed from the hallway and started growling, which again isn't like her. I was about to risk it all and shout my mum, even though I know she would be annoyed. I woke her, and when I saw the mattress lift up and the dog stopped growling, I stayed up all night as I was so scared, and my dog stayed with me, and I shut the door so she couldn't roam the house. 2 days later, I'm in the bath with soap in my eyes when I feel a tapping on my shoulder. I assume it's my little sister wandering, who was non-verbal at the time. I say to her to go to Mum, as she shouldn't be walking in on people without knocking. Then I started shivering and went really cold all of a sudden. I wiped my eyes to turn to speak to her, and no one was there. I shouted to my mom, "Where is my sister?" and she said she was playing in the garden on her bike. I got out so fast and tried to avoid thinking about it. Then that night, something awful happened. I went to bed, fell asleep earlier than usual, then woke up from a nightmare I couldn't remember, but I was sweating. I smoked at the time and went downstairs, which I never did as I was scared of being near the back door at night. It was 2 a.m., and when I was stood there, I heard a massive smash and glass fell into my garden. I found out the next day that the neighbor had her windows put through even though she was very quiet and didn't have any issues with anybody. I was terrified, so went to the front door instead, as I was unsure if I was losing my mind at this point. I finish, and as I am walking up the stairs, I hear a massive smash in my bedroom. I go to my room, and the massive glass picture has come off the wall. It was secure with screws and smashed right where my head would have been, and I should imagine it would have caused serious injury from the height it fell and the weight of it. I had many other weird experiences, doors slamming, but whatever it was started on my little sister. She began waking up, having screaming terrors, and one night I heard so much slamming in her room next to me I thought she had got out of bed, and when I walked in, stuff was off her shelf, but she was fast asleep. Very disturbing. We moved a month later and never looked back. Sometimes a house doesn't want to be shared. The air turns heavy, the silence becomes charged, and before long you start to feel it. That invisible line between your world and something else pressing too close. Some presences fade when you leave, but others you can't be sure ever really let go. Our second story is by Reddit user Snow Trooper. This account unfolds in the stillness of a northern Ontario summer, a place where silence is supposed to soothe, and the only sounds should be the whisper of the lake or the distant call of a loon. But sometimes quiet places have their own kind of noise. A laughter that doesn't belong. A tune that drifts through the trees when the night grows too deep. What begins as another peaceful evening at the family cottage soon becomes something else entirely. Something watching, waiting, and far too close. It was the perfect summer of 2021 when it all started. The air was the perfect temperature, neither too warm nor too cold. Perfect. My cottage in northern Ontario sits in a secluded small town region. I wouldn't say it is far away from civilization, but it's quite desolate. It is the kind of place where you can take a deep breath in and say, this is life. My cottage is by the lake, so I'd love to fish at night. It's something I picked up with my dad and cousin. It feels like you've escaped the noise of the world when you're up north. At least that's what I thought when I first pulled up one late night. The surrounding area is peaceful, save for the occasional loon's call or the rustle of leaves in the breeze. There's even an old abandoned barn nearby that has always seemed out of place, like a relic from a horror movie or something. Between the cottage and the main road lies the Wolf Fang Forest, a name I gave it as a kid after noticing its fang-like outline on Google Earth. Silly, maybe, but it stuck. That night, as I pulled into the driveway around 11:30 p.m., the world felt pretty still. My Volvo, a truck I've cherished for years, was packed with summer gear. Water toys, food, camping supplies, the usual shebang. Traffic had been brutal on the way, forcing me to take an unfamiliar route. My parents and cousin had arrived early in the day when the sun was still high, and I was traveling with family friends and relatives who were eager to hit the bunks. After helping them unload and settle inside, I lingered outside to finish unpacking. There were a few bags left to take inside with toys, towels, and other toiletries. It was then I heard it, faint at first, almost indistinguishable from the background hum of the forest. A tune, jaunty and mechanical, mixed with bursts of high-pitched laughter. It wasn't the joyous kind of laughter you'd hear at a carnival or when you're hanging with your friend who has had one too many drinks. It was distorted. It sounded like an old record being played backwards. For a moment I froze. The sound was distant, somewhere beyond the forest, but unmistakable. I shook it off, telling myself it was my imagination. Who the fuck plays circus music in the middle of the night in northern Ontario? I forced myself to focus on the task at hand, hauling the last of the luggage inside. I mean, someone had to do the work. When I mentioned the noise to my cousin, he laughed it off. He insinuated it was probably some drunk kids messing around. His nonchalance was almost convincing, but then again, he's pretty much always nonchalant. Something about that sound clung to me, though. Who was it? The nearest cabin was quite far away, and no one here I know of it is really the type to play that kind of stuff, especially loudly in the middle of the night. Later, as the rest of the family settled in, my cousin and I went outside to store the bikes and other gear in the garage. There was no wind, no rustling leaves, nothing, just the rhythmic chirp of crickets. It was quite relaxing, and believe you me, I was ecstatic. I didn't hear those hellish clown noises again. Then, right there, when I had assumed the noise had stopped, it happened again. The laughter. This time it was closer, louder. The same warped tune, repeating like a broken music box. My cousin stopped mid-step and turned to me immediately. The first time I've actually seen him show another emotion other than a smug, nonchalant expression. I nodded at him. No words needed to be said. We both knew something was going on. Or well, we knew the obvious. Some jerks were probably trying to mess with us. Without another word, we walked to the garage, our footsteps crunching against the gravel. We didn't care. We were the men of the house, after all. We were not going to let some teenage college student scare us. We had a job to do, and we didn't want to hinder or wake up our resting family. When we reached the door to the garage, my cousin pulled the door open and shut it behind us. I turned on the light switch, and we both let out a sigh of relief, basking in the woody smell of the garage structure. We stood in silence, staring at each other. I could see my cousin was a bit shaken up. Now that I look back on it, I can see why. Someone is out there and knows we are here. But we don't know where they are. Despite my cousin being the gung-ho type of man who goes to the gym often, his confident, nonchalant attitude diminished as soon as we stepped foot in that garage. I knew my aunt put some flashlights in the garage, so I spent a few minutes looking while my cousin slowly paced around the room. We didn't hear the clown noises, but only for the reason the hum of the lights blocked out any possible sounds or the ability for one to hear their own thoughts. I found a flashlight behind a few boxes in a drawer, and I remember the exact exchange that went down in the garage that night. "I'm going to find out where it's coming from," I said. "You're joking," my cousin said, but I wasn't. Something about that sound gnawed at me, an instinct screaming that it didn't belong here. I told my cousin to walk, or as he interpreted it, run to the cottage and lock the door. I didn't want anyone getting into the cottage. I didn't want anything to happen, and I was going to ensure that. I opened the door to the garage and walked out as I watched my cousin sprint to the cottage door. The gravel crunched under my boots, and I walked down the road, flashlight on and in hand. The forest loomed on either side of the gravel road. It felt like a tunnel. The laughter returned, faint but persistent, weaving its way through the trees. Every step I took seemed to draw it closer. Maybe it was at the end of the road, I thought. And then, As I pointed my flashlight through the trees, skimming for anything out of the ordinary, I heard it. A small sound. A crunch. The crunch of something on a fallen leaf. The crunch of a footstep. Not mine. Something was following me. I stopped, my heart ready to pump itself out of my chest cavity, and swung the flashlight toward the noise. Nothing. Just the dense wall of trees. It was probably a bird or animal. I mean, we're in the middle of northern Ontario, after all. I didn't know what time it was, but it was probably past 45. The sound continued, though. I couldn't tell if it was in the trees or down the road, but it grew louder. And as much as I didn't want to accept it, the noises grew closer. My breath quickened as I scanned the forest, constantly looking over my shoulder, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. For a moment, I thought I saw something, a glint of metal, a flash of movement, but it was gone before I could be sure. Maybe a nail or piece of debris that was reflecting it. Honestly, I was finding any and all possible excuses to calm my mind. But then the sound shifted. It wasn't just the crunch of leaves anymore. It was heavier, deliberate. Footsteps. Human footsteps. My mouth went dry. "Hello?" I called out. I didn't know what to do. The word barely echoed before it was swallowed by the oppressive silence of the forest. Nothing answered. No rustling, no response. Just the low hum of crickets and my ragged breath. I took a step back, my foot crunching against the gravel road. And that's when it happened. A sound I will never forget. A low, distorted laugh. Not joyous, not natural, but garbled, like a broken recording of a clown's giggle being dragged through mud. It came from my right, deep within the trees, maybe 3 or 4 meters away. My body tensed as my instincts seemed at me to run. My hand tightened around the flashlight, and I swung the beam wildly toward the source of the sound. This time, I saw something move. A figure hiding down behind a tree, stump, and some shrubs. My legs felt like lead, and my chest tightening with every breath. I couldn't scream. The air seemed stuck in my throat. I don't know how long I stood there. I broke. The fight or flight instinct kicked in, and I turned on my heel, sprinting back towards the cottage as fast as my legs would carry me. The flashlight bobbed wildly, illuminating fragments of the gravel road and trees. In the distance, the laugh twisted into something guttural, almost like growling. The cottage lights came into view, but I didn't stop, didn't turn around, even as the laughs grew louder. My feet hit the front stone steps, and I threw open the door, slamming it shut and locking it behind me. I remember the adrenaline and absolute shock, scaring me so much I almost fainted and vomited. My mom looked up from the living room. I couldn't speak. I was clutching the flashlight like a lifeline. My cousin appeared from my family relative's room, his face pale, and my uncle and father looked at me. I remember my dad giving my mom a hand gesture, a kneeling down beside me. "You heard it too, didn't you?" he whispered. I nodded. My dad exchanged a glance with my mom and uncle, clearly trying to downplay the fear spreading across my face. My stomach was convulsing, and I was gagging, close to throwing up. My cousin and I locked the doors and windows that night, double-checking every latch and deadbolt. Even then, I didn't feel safe. Sleep didn't come easy. Every creak of the cottage made my pulse race and sweat form on my brow. Every gust of wind against the window made me want to jump into action. Somewhere out there in the vast emptiness of the northern Ontario, someone was waiting. Someone was out there. Around 3 a.m., I awoke to the sound of creaking wood. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew louder with each passing sound. The dock. Someone was walking down the dock. My blood ran cold. I got out of bed, and turned on the lights. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. The silence that followed was... I stood there, heart hammering in my chest, until exhaustion finally overtook me and I went back to bed. When I emerged the next morning, there were footprints on the dock. Muddy footprints. Muddy footprints. They were large, heavy, and unmistakable. They circled the cottage leading to the dock and back again. I wish I could say it all that was in my head, that I could explain away the strange noises, the laughter, the footprints. But I can't. Someone was out there. Someone that didn't belong. And as I sit here writing this, the world feels quieter than ever. Too quiet. I don't know if I'm alone when I go up there anymore. I don't know. There's a kind of quiet that isn't peace. It's a pause before something breathes. You tell yourself it's just the wind, a trick of distance, a sound your mind made up. But when the laughter stops and the footprints stay, you realize that not everything in the dark wants to be forgotten. Some things come back when the woods go still. That ends episode 31. Sometimes the past doesn't fade. It just changes its shape, waiting for us to recognize it. If you feel the air shift behind you tonight, don't turn around too quickly. Some echoes are better left unanswered.
As the night gets longer and the darkness creeps in, with the eerie silence broken only by whispering wind, come gather round the fire, the flickering flames, and hear the tales of the spooky and the strange. A chill up your back, a shiver up your spine. You'll be haunted by the things that you find. Legends will unfold and stories will be told at a scary campfire, for only the bold